Hey nerds, welcome back to the channel. In Sam's video, she asked what my plan would be if some sort of, I don't know, some sort of system shutdown or government apocalypse. So let's start with what my plan ideally would be. So let's say something simple happens, like government shutdown and grid shutdowns happen. There's civilization's kind of fending for itself. All of a sudden people are in survival mode. We have no power. We have no Wi-Fi. There's no cell service. There's nobody telling anybody what to do. What's my plan? Okay. So, for at least the first 48 hours, I would stay home. I would stay in my house. I would try and utilize as much water and food that I have. Now, ideally, in a perfect scenario, you would have a 72-hour survival kit already in place, along with lights and candles and batteries, and that would set you up for the first 72 hours to not even leave the house. Because what happens is when stuff first happens, it takes a little bit of time for everyone to realize what's going on, but then when it does, they all hit the streets. They're running into the stores, they're trying to get water, they're trying to get food, all of a sudden they're in each other's way. Traffic starts getting backed up, it just gets crazy. So if you can stay home for the first 72 hours while everybody else is going crazy, you're already ahead of the game, that you don't need to be out in that chaos. You're safe in your home for the first little bit. But your home is only going to provide a limited amount of resource. And soon, you're going to be out of food and water, and you're going to be going stir crazy. So after 72 hours, we would be figuring out what kind of things we either need to be staying here and whether it's safe for us to stay here or if we need to be going somewhere else. Things that we would need to stay here is obviously a continuous supply of food for the four of us, me, my wife, my two kids, and water, and how sustainable that's going to be. So after you figure that out, so let's say for this example, we decide that it is not safe to stay here. This is not going to be a good place for us, and we need to go. Depending on the time of year, that makes it tough. This being the coldest time of year, we would battle it out. We would stay here. But let's just say it's warmer and this place isn't safe. We would be picking a location in which we thought was the best. Now, we live on an island and we're surrounded by a coast, and the coast provides a lot of food. Ideally, you'd be set up with certain equipment in a case of emergency that you'd be able to survive long term without any assistance. So some things that, because of where we live, that would be good to have would be stuff like a crab trap and a net trap, fishing poles, which we have. And we would start doing stuff like hitting up the stocked lakes first to fish for the fish out of there, because they're going to be the most abundant. We'll be dropping crab traps. So that gives us advantages living on the ocean, but also having an abundant forest, having the bow and my hunting gear, and actually living in a city will give me an advantage in that. And what I mean is, the city shuts down, animals don't know, and in cities, especially around here, there are deer that specifically move into neighborhoods so that they are safe. That they know that they're not going to get hunted there, and they can eat grass and they can be close to humans and be safe. And in this this emergency situation, if it's that extreme, the rules and law are out the window, I'm hunting those deer in that city, because I will be able to get them quicker and get closer into them to accurately harvest that animal without having to go out into the woods and hunt it around. So we would have a pretty good roll of food going on there. The next thing being water. Water is a little bit more difficult. We have pretty clean water here in Vancouver Island, but even so, we have a high rain season which flushes out from the mountains down, and it picks up sediment and stuff from there. So any water that we would get, that if we didn't have any bottled water left, we would need to boil. We would be able to boil our water. The closest creek though is a little bit of a walk. Not a huge one, but a pretty good one. And we have a little wagon. We'd probably be loading buckets of water up and bringing it home. If we had to leave, around here we have the Trans-Canada Trails, which we would be using. We would not be driving. The roads would probably be backed up, and people would travel on those roads more often. People on horses and bikes and quads, you'll probably see them on the Trans-Canada Trail, making it still dangerous, but not as dangerous as the roads. And then we would take the Trans-Canada Trail as much as we could till we got to the train tracks, and then when we get to the train tracks, we'd hop that, because then you'd see less quads and dirt bikes on then. And the key is to be around as little people as possible. After you've got your food and your water figured out, the next problem is other people. They want your food, they want your water, and they want you gone. And I'm not down for any of that. I got a family, they're my priority. So we'd hit the Trans-Canada Trail, move onto the train tracks as soon as we could, probably take the train tracks out to the coast on the Victoria side there. And there's a few locked in coves that you have to hike down into, which we would be thinking about setting up a camp in those destinations, being in the ocean. The fact that there's deer and bear and game around there, that you can still get your clams and oysters, you can get your salmon. There's creek of fresh water that will run down into this specific area that I'm talking about, and then we would have access to a continuous flow of fresh water. So those are the two setups that I think I would do in a perfect world, if we had everything we needed to survive. The reality is that we actually aren't prepared. We should have at least a bug out bag set up for me, and then one for a lighter one for my wife. So if we did have to get out in a quick emergency, we have our bug out bags and at least 72 hours worth of food and survival gear in that kit. So if we needed to survive off the land, we would have the tools to do so. If this is something anyone's interested in, I actually recommend you get the book Bushcraft 101, or you can even listen to it on Audible now. And it is a very detailed book on outdoor survival and bushcrafting in general, and it goes over materials and techniques to surviving outdoors. In our current state, we would stay home 72 hours, we'd be okay. Then after a while, we would start to eat our food. We'd have to figure out what we would do. So really, we would have to hit up something like a grocery store. And the risk in going out and doing something like that is that you're going to run into other people. And when high stake and high tension is out there, you're going to run into some sort of incident at some point. There will be acts of violence. When people are scared, they just do silly things. So in our current setup, we would have to go to a store and start getting some supplies. And that puts us at danger right away. So I would probably be the one that would go to the store and take that risk, so my wife and kids would be able to stay here. I would also have to do that as soon as we realized there was a bad situation, because you want to get there while there's still stuff there. The problem with that is that's when everybody's there. So you're going at a high risk situation. But if you can make it through that, then you set yourself up. Things that I recommend that you would have was like a little propane cook stove. You would have stuff like wool blankets. If you're at home, you have all your clothes, bottled water or water sterilizations, matches or a lighter for fire starter. I have a little green solar panel that I can hook a USB up to, and that will charge our cell phones. And I also have a flashlight system that charges with a USB, so that solar panel can charge all our cell phones if we needed them charged, if we needed to have our cell phones. And then I could also charge my my flashlight with this solar panel. So even having a couple of those more of those around would benefit us a lot. Same with the solar panel, or same with the USB charging lights. Another thing is, if it's the right type of year, we will have vegetables growing in the backyard. So that's another long-term food supplies. But this is a topic I'm really getting more involved in, and I believe that we should be more prepared for it, especially after our snow that shut us down here, and then that windstorm that shut us down. Everybody was having problems. So being prepared is a key to survival in those situations, and we're going to work on being more prepared. I'm going to be getting some bug out bags and a get home bag. A get home bag is a bag that you have in your vehicle in case it breaks down and you need to get home in some sort of emergency. I could sit here and jibber jabber about this all night, but one thing I said is that I wouldn't want to run into other people. I want to avoid other people as possible. Just having a family would make your tasks even more extreme, because you're caring for 2 young children. My wife is there. If something happens to any of us, our load becomes even bigger. So it is hard with a family, but that's also why I roll with the stay put. Stay in your home for as long as you can, because most of what you're going to use is already here. If I did have to travel with some other people, I would be traveling with my brother Dustin, his wife Crystal, and their child. And that gives us 3 children and 4 adults. That's a pretty big group to be trying to survive with. But what the difference between that and this random anybody that you run into and you group up with is that I can rely on my brother Dustin and his girlfriend Crystal. I know that he's got gear and training that would benefit us, and his relationship is close enough that we would work good as a team. We would normally, I would say that if you met someone in a survival situation but you didn't know them, you would have to work through working as a team and figure each other out to try and survive. Where me and my brother Dustin, we've already figured that out. As soon as it goes down, together we're in survival mode, and we'd be quicker on our feet to get our tasks in order. All right, I don't want to talk about this too much. I could literally dive into some deeper details on gear and equipment, mapping, different locations to go in survival, different type of survival scenarios. Like if there was a tsunami here, then what would we do? If it's a power out, if it's a government shutdown, zombie apocalypse, all of these things would have a different response. So I don't want to dive into too much more. That's hopefully that just kind of gives you an idea of what my mindset would be like if we were in some sort of emergency need. All right, Sam, since we've moved into this place, all of our manga has been wrapped up in boxes, and that's one of our fandoms that we haven't really dove too much into. So in your next video, my question for you is, what is your favorite manga collection that we have? Just something about one of your manga collections is what I want to see in the next video. And thanks for watching, guys. I hope that my little talk about maybe what I would do in survival or being prepared might promote you into being prepared, or getting prepared, stuff like a bug out bag and etc. All right. Okay, I'm done talking about it, guys. We'll see you next time.